What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 344 of Opinions May Vary. I am your host, JR. I have my co-host with me, Alex.
Hello.
I'm seeing you so many times this week. This is like twice this week, but I get to see it's a record in the last couple months.
It's a brand new week, not really.
It's a brand new week, but nobody needs to know that. Joining us this week over the internet machines, many states away, many time zones away, is our new friend, Nina Zepeda. Nina, thank you so much for coming on.
Hi, thank you for having me.
We were first kind of introduced to you through a mutual friend of ours, a very, very good friend of ours. He's been on the show 7 or 8, maybe 5 or 6. I don't know. I don't know how many
he's
times.
A board member, so he's beat 14.
He's a board member, but
probably close to 20.
Our really good friend Will, who moved out to the West Coast a couple years ago because he's super important and very talented. Posted a picture once. It's like, hey guys, look at this picture. I'm at this convention. I'm all made up. And you work with Will at Six Flags, correct?
Correct. He is my manager.
He tends to do
so
that.
So he oversees everything what we do, along with the actors and the makeup artists.
But we had seen an image of the work that you had done. I believe it was on Will, because Will looked amazing. And that piqued our interest because spooky season was coming up. During the month of October, we like to talk about spooky stuff. We talk with a lot of haunters and artists and creators who make scary things. And we've talked with a lot of East Coast people.
Oh yeah.
Like pretty much everyone that we've talked with who's been involved in like haunting, makeup artists, special effects, things of that nature have been predominantly East Coast. So I think it would be really neat to talk with someone who isn't on the East Coast. I guess that's how I'm going to frame this. Not that there's any sort of rivalry or anything.
Pretty much the opposite side.
Yeah, the opposite side of the country. And you seem to be extremely good at this, having lurked your social medias, for a little bit, and reading some interviews. It seems like you are really good at this stuff, and you haven't been doing it that long. Am I like what's your start?
Oh gosh, I believe I started back in either 2013 or 14. I was working at Barnes & Noble. I bumped into Nicole Chilelli from Face Off. I applied to the local haunt she was working for. She kind of took me in as an apprentice and showed me the ropes, and I've been doing makeup ever since. So I did work with her, and then when I moved out to the Bay Area from Sacramento, that's when I applied to Six Flags, and I met Will and his makeup team, and I've just been working with them ever since.
Had you had makeup experience before that, like just goofing off on your own or painting your own face?
Gosh. I look at the pictures now and I cringe a little bit because it would be like in my room with cheap little eyeshadows, and I would think, oh, that looks cool, and I look back at it now. And yeah, I didn't really have experience before I met Nicole at all. It wasn't even something I had considered. Before I even knew about the makeup world, I was more of just, I drew different characters and monsters and whatnot, and I thought I would be an illustrator. But yeah.
So I imagine you've told this story a million times, but having met Nicole, like just this was all pure happenstance. Like she just happened to come into your store.
Oh my God, it was pure happenstance. Like I wasn't even supposed to be scheduled for work that day, and they called me in, and she was a friend of someone who was doing a book signing. And there was a huge crowd gathering, and I'm over in the music department wondering, what's all the commotion about? And someone mentions her name, and I instantly recognized her because I had watched the show, and I started fangirling, and I took a break to go meet her, and took a picture and found out that she worked at the haunt like immediately after, and that's where it all took off.
So I've met some artists here and there, and like some people are fans of Face Off, some people aren't fans of Face Off. Because
you used to like not live tweet it, but you would like live post about it, right?
Like the first season.
Yeah. And back in the day.
And then like I kind of fell off the wagon just because I didn't want to watch the drama show. I wanted to watch the making show.
Right.
And that's not what I was getting. So where would you fall in that category?
I don't know. I mean, just as far as like what type of makeup artist, or
well, I mean, to recognize people from the show, you know, to recognize Nicole's name and be like, oh, I want to meet this person because I like their work. Like when you would watch Face Off, did you watch it because, you know, you wanted
people
I would watch
or
it.
the
Yeah, I would understand that there would be drama in there, and that's never what I was really interested in. I always was looking for the end result. And now that I've been doing makeup longer, I go back and I constantly reference, like, how did they do that? Or I remember this one episode, I want to figure out how they did that. And it's more of just the work rather than the drama.
Mm-hmm.
And if I were to see a certain artist, I think I would base it more off the work they did rather than the personality, I guess, more to say, or if there was drama behind their appearance on the show.
And I get it, because at the end of the day, you got to make entertainment, you know, because not everyone is, you know, like in the know and educated. But it is still rad that there was a show. And is Face Off still around?
Nope.
It's not around. There was a show.
They ended. I can't believe it's over already.
Did it make 10 seasons? They got close, right?
13.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like they had a good run. And there was a show about special effects makeup, which is not something that you see much of. I think it's one of the, I mean, again, you're talking to someone who hasn't had cable in close to a decade, but it's still rad that the show even existed to begin with.
Yeah, I feel like that show was the reason why I even got involved in makeup, because I realized there's just drawing the monsters, and then there's people who actually turn them into a real life character, and it blew my mind.
When you mentioned you thought maybe you would lean towards Illustrator, what was like your original inspirations? Like what might have pushed you towards that, or what did you favor for content, or like what would you want to consume that would make you want to be an illustrator?
I mean, I kind of bounced all over the place. I was going to be a storyboard artist, a character designer, an animator, and then closer towards the end of high school, I focused more on creature and kind of concept design. And I just took more inspiration, just a lot from fantasy films, a bit of horror films, but mostly fantasy, just to see how far people pushed things with different characters or creatures. And then I found Face Off, and that took it to a different level of seeing how people created things and how they would take away human aspects to make it look more like a creature, or they added more human to make a fusion of like some sort of hybrid.
Mm-hmm.
But that's mostly where I got my inspiration.
I feel like sometimes people forget how big of a jump that is to go from, you know, I just drew something, I designed it on paper, it's 2D, but now you have to actually make it a real thing. And
oh yeah, there's so much more to consider, like profiles and how it'll look from a certain angle, and just proportions in general. It's so easy to just draw something.
One of the makeup girls that works for me at our haunt, she occasionally we have a haunt where it's a laboratory and there's doctors and patients, and she manages to get these syringes in people's foreheads.
Gross.
And they stick right out. She's not cheating anyway, just in there. They don't budge, they don't loosen up. And
wow.
And I tell her, it's like, oh, Dee Dee's doing a black magic again. Somehow she's defying the laws of physics and gravity doesn't obey her, and so these syringes are just sticking into people's heads. And
because stuff like that, you always have to worry, especially when the makeup, because you're like, okay, is it gonna fall? Is the weight of it gonna show?
Exactly. So like, if you would design a character with some kind of giant fin on its head, or if it has a weird pose, like, how am I going to make this stay on? How is it going to stay upright? Is it going to wobble? Is it going to fall off? Is it going to pull and tear? Like, all these things have to get considered. And then, like, do you alter your original design to fit a real person?
Yeah, because it's almost like you can draw something to make it look cool, but then you have to think about, okay, well, how am I going to make this? Like, is this something that I can make a physical thing out of? You almost have to be a fabricator at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one thing I wanted to touch on, lurking your social media. It looks like you do a lot of fabrication yourself when it comes to, you know, creating different pieces and masks and things of that nature. Having only done this, like, and again, like, I know it's been a couple years, like 4 or 5 years. That seems so, like, you haven't been doing it too long, but you're already doing things.
I'm very new at it still, yeah.
Yeah, right. And like, you're already doing things that, like, it looks this is going to be the basic version. It looks really good. Like for some, like it's hard. Like if someone was like, hey, look at this piece, look at this work, and this person's only been doing this for a handful of years. Not, you're lying. I hate you. Shut up. I have no talent. Is that something that like you just kind of dove right into in terms of like, actually coming up with your own like sculpts and pieces and things like that, or was like, has it always been an interest?
Yeah. Like I took the basic sort of like ceramics class and whatnot in school and kind of dabbled around, but it's only very recently where I actually started making things. Before it would be a prosthetic and airbrush work that I would play with, and especially this year I'm really starting to play and learning how to make resin masks or learning how to make a prosthetic. My co-lead at the haunt showed me how to make sock masks and how to use plaster to make a mold instead of stone, and I've just been playing with that, and I feel like it's opened up an entire another world almost of things that you can do with makeup, and I'm just trying to play with that as much as I can and learn all these different tips and whatnot.
A lot of people will get asked the question of like, well, did you go to school for this, or what kind of training have you had? And my answer is usually like, no, I kind of got hired, and
do it for long enough.
Like the people I'm in the room with teach me, and that's been my school for the past 16, 17 years now. And like, even one of the things I explain, like even when I'm teaching someone new, and like the old timers go, well, we don't do it this way, and the new person goes, well, why not? And we go, what? Because they try it and it works, and we don't remember why it's not done that way.
Now we do it that way.
Yeah, I feel like just having that, especially with the haunt world, it's the makeup artists and the actors, they become sort of that second family, and everyone communicates their different tips and tricks on how to do something, and you're constantly learning and having to stay open-minded on approaching things from a different perspective that you may not have thought of initially. And I feel like a lot of it's just self-taught and reaching out to other people to learn how you did something, or just performing your own research. I feel like there's not a set, like you don't just go to school and take a set course all the time, like in other industries. But yeah, a lot of it's just being creative.
It's almost like the rite of passage of like, how much hair have you lost to latex? Well,
oh my God, yes.
It's like, yeah. I've lost quite a bit. It's like, all right, respect. Unless you're smart enough to not have that happen.
I always stayed away. The 2 years that I always speak of these 2 years, and I have the same 2 years of stories. But maybe there's someone new listening, who knows. The 2 years that I spent in haunts, I always like vehemently avoided, like, no latex, just hit me with an airbrush, maybe give me a little bit of blood. Oh, yeah. I wasn't a big, like, I didn't, because I would watch my coworkers at the end of the night peeling their skin off, and just the agony that they that they were in, but like it was also, they had a lot more fun than I did. I'm not good at scaring people. It's not something that I excel at. I will be the first person to admit that. But I was very needy in the fact that I prided myself on my ability to dive into Alex's chair, because it was just in and out. Just paint my face. Let me go be miserable for 4 hours, and I'm gonna go home. But
yeah, and that's understandable, because it can be fun to put on a prosthetic and be all done up. But at the end of the day, you got to take all of that off, and there's removers, but it doesn't always take it all off. You're still picking pieces of prosate out of your hair or something the next day.
There's always the like toward the, maybe in the middle or toward the end, it's like, oh, hey, the season's over, let's go to Denny's, or I don't know if they have Denny's on the West Coast. Let's go get food and be gross, and like everyone sitting around the table has like the black around like the edge of their face
and the hairline.
They got most of the makeup off, but like there's still a little bit left.
The eyes and the ears.
You get all the side eyes from everyone who's there.
Just the basics.
One thing I wanted to ask, because this is something that me and my friends deal with, having a friend in Alex, doing special effects and doing makeup like this, are movies, TV shows, media, do you find yourself like looking for the seams when you see someone in an
gosh.
because
Oh my gosh. Well, I feel like once you recognize how it works and you know that there is a seam, you do try to look for it, whether it's in the eyes or around the nose or the forehead or the chin. You're like, where is it? Or if you see it, you're like, oh my God, that's terrible.
Because like I'll see a movie, big movie, whatever it is, and then Alex will see it, and we'll all be talking about it. This is not a dig at Alex.
It's
This is
okay.
how much I appreciate you. You know, oh my God, that was crazy when this happened. And then Alex was like, yeah, and you couldn't even see a seam. It was great.
Yeah.
I was looking, and I was like, dude, you know, we're talking about the gauntlet, dude. But it's, you know, and it goes to show, like, you know, it kind of alters your vision. Like when we were at a convention a couple years ago, a steampunk show, and there was a guy, was it Planet of the Apes? I don't know what he was. Was he just an ape?
Yep.
He was like an ape man.
Mhm.
And the entire weekend
It was really good.
Yeah, Alex was like, I can't see a single, and I was like, dude, what are you talking about? What is the seam? I don't understand. Like sewing? I don't know what this means.
This guy, I think there were two of them. Like you could tell one like was being the character, and their friend was kind of just there with them.
I'm here too.
Yeah, but like he had his monkey face on, and I could not find where the mask met the person's actual skin.
Wow.
And
That's
Yeah. and like with those the classic Planet of the Apes faces, like, and I'm looking at the eyes, I'm looking around the eyes.
I think I was talking a lot.
I can't find it.
So it was moving.
Yeah, oh yeah, the mouth moved fine. I couldn't see anything around the jaw, the lips, or any of that. And like, you know, it was one of those things where like I'm like uncomfortably staring at this dude's face now.
He's probably like, why are you staring so much?
I hope like they kind of knew, like, yeah, it's good, right?
Yeah.
What's a thing or two that you found that you've picked out? Like once, you know, like you said, once you know how the magic is made, like what do you have an example of something you've discovered?
When stuff like that, not only am I trying to look for, like, trying to find the flaw or trying to find like how they did that, I'm trying to also recognize, like, is it a real character in makeup or is it a CGI thing? Because I noticed a lot that sometimes they just don't go for special effects makeup and they just generate it on the computer, and at that point you can create that perfect image of this character. But I always try to look, and I have more of an appreciation for films that do use special effects over like animation. Just because I feel like you have that someone made that character by hand and they did that level of work that can compete with animation. So that's another thing I've found that I appreciate and look for in films or TV shows.
There are times where I can't tell. It makes me frustrated.
Yeah.
Because it's like, I should be able to know. I should look at this and just be perfectly aware.
Yeah, or if it's a mix of the two where it's like some parts are makeup, some parts aren't.
I think the one that got me the most was one of the Walking Deads when the governor took his eye patch off.
Oh.
And I was like, I think that's CG. I don't think, because like where his eye is, like you'd have to build that up. It would have to sit over the skin, and like it's going in. I don't.
You're trying to figure out, like, okay, how would have made that? Would that even work if they did?
Right. Yeah.
But you'd think, like, with all of the practical effects makeup that they already do, because they have the ability to do that.
Oh yeah.
I would hope that it would be real, or like real as in like a real prosthetic or a real fake.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite product? Or like, do you have like a go-to item in your kit that you prefer to use, or does it depend on the project?
Like a signature piece?
Yeah.
I mean, aside from just latex in general, or Pros-Aid just being my best friends, I'm not too sure on that. I kind of like to stay on a range of things. I typically favor airbrush products or just the paint. but I feel like latex is the friend. Just because it can be used in multiple ways. It can be used to attach things or to create texture. That would have to be my favorite.
So this is the second time you've mentioned Prozaid. So you're not a fan of Spirigum.
I wouldn't say I'm not a fan. I just don't work with it as often.
For someone who's dumb like myself, what are you guys talking about?
It's an adhesive. Yeah, it's because
adhesive.
Got it.
Our good friend Kyle, who's been on a bunch of times, he hates Spirigum. He is adamant against it, and when he can, he'll Prozaid and he'll avoid Spirigum like at all costs. He's
I mean, I haven't worked with it too often, but I feel like I put a little more trust in Prozaid. It just seems like it would do a better job.
Yeah, that's true. If you need to get like that perfect job for it to hold for hours and hours and not slip and look fine and not slide or anything, then obviously yes. But when you've got your local teenage kid sitting in your chair and you just got to glue some horns on them, you're gonna scare for about a couple hours and then got to take it off. So Spirigum might be the best bet.
That's another thing I've noticed, just from doing haunt stuff, is like, depending on the makeup, it factors in which products you're going to use. Like, are you going to go all out and make this photo ready makeup on someone who's going to be in a dark room and someone's not even going to notice the makeup for more than maybe 2 seconds? Or do you do something quick with high contrast? Just stuff like that, where it affects your decision process.
That's a tough one to teach too. To get someone who's used to like having perfect light, to get them to dial back the detail a bit and brighten up the colors.
I feel like I had a trouble with that too, because that's something Nicole taught me, was more of just if it was in perfect lighting and it had that high quality look, where you have to go subtle with textures and lines and whatnot. And then I go to the haunt and everything is super high contrast and the lines are sharp. And at first it took a while for me to get used to that, because I was just like, I need the detail. I need to take time on this. And it's like, no, you only have a certain amount of time. You got to get it done. They're going to be in a dark room or with a red light. You're not going to be able to see certain colors.
These are all the things I try to explain to my kids.
Yeah.
It's like this entire haunt, red lights.
Oh yeah.
Anything you paint white, yellow, light red, or it's all the same color.
It's all gonna be red.
Yeah.
You want to put red blood over white? It's all red.
Yeah.
Do you ever get like being someone, and I always point this out, I'm not artistically talented, but I imagine, like, do you ever get to go onto I don't know how the park is set up at out west, but like we have the main like midway concourse area, people running around screaming, yelling, chainsaws, shovels, and the like. Is there like a proud parent feeling when you see people in, who you may have made up, put into
oh my gosh, all the time. If we walk out and I'll see a certain character that I did, and or just seeing, even for the other makeup artists, if I see that their work is done and they're getting a good scare and that person is genuinely terrified, there is that proud parent moment. And especially since, I mean, I'm the biggest scaredy cat in general, but if I do that person's makeup and they manage to scare me, I'm just kind of like, okay. For a second I forgot that like you're a person. So there's also that.
Do you get the opportunity to scare much at your park?
Oh yeah. It starts over here. It starts where the first couple of weekends we walk through all the houses only in the zones, just to kind of get a feel of what works, what doesn't, what works. And that's like, okay, that whole zone is red light, so we're going to have to make the contrast black instead of brown. Little details like that. And then after that, we've been dressing up every weekend now to go out and scare, Friday through Sunday.
Now,
that's been a lot of fun.
Being out in the West Coast, because like one thing it's really easy for us to forget over here is like, is your park open like throughout the entire, like, the whole week?
No, it's only Friday through Sunday, and
Oh,
then
okay.
for this year, it's open weekdays on the week of Halloween. So
Hmm.
it'll be Friday through Wednesday.
Ooh. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
Just say, because
but normally it's only a weekend deal.
those actors they'd lose their voice in a day.
They die.
Like, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Because being on the East Coast, obviously we have weather,
Yeah.
Mhm.
and like the park shuts down pretty much. But it's one because, and again, I'm completely ignorant to this entire thing. Your park is open year round, correct?
I believe so.
I think it is.
So
Yeah.
The
sometimes,
way Will talks, it sounds like it is.
sometimes as haunters don't know anything past
Past haunting.
September.
Yeah.
I wanna jog back a bit to a couple things we
Let's
mentioned.
pivot.
I'm gonna do this a lot.
Yep.
One of the things you mentioned earlier about sharing techniques and info and just, helping everyone get along. We met a guy over here. His name is Bill. A thing he started promoting was Many Haunts, One Family. And because a lot of haunters just love going to other haunts and enjoying them. And it's usually like an immature or like newish place that doesn't have much history behind it, that thinks like, oh, well, we got to have beef with this other haunt next town over. And it's like, no,
Oh,
you're
no,
you're a
yeah.
family. You're all doing the same job. And so we try to spread that over here and just appreciate what we're all doing. And if someone has a great prop or a scene or makeup or whatever, we try to tell them that. Be like, hey, I'm from so-and-so and I like your giant meat blender machine. It's fantastic. like, hey, your scream was great. That sounded amazing. And so and we'll get a new artist in who's not familiar with all the sharing that we do and try to explain it. It's like, if you have a person in a band who plays bass and like they don't want to teach anyone how to play their bass because then they won't get work anymore because more people will be fighting for the job. And we're we're like, nah, just if you're good, then be good.
Yeah, I've always kind of just generally had that opinion in general. Like, I didn't understand where it's like, if you know something, then you have to hide it. I never understood that. If somebody asks me how I did something, I will spill the beans and like go into full detail and draw out pictures and even show them, like, till they were annoyed. They would be like, okay, I didn't want to know that much. I just wanted to tell you I liked it. But no, I've always had that general, like, I agree with that thought process for everyone. We all share the same interest in things that are scary and being a certain character in the makeup and just the overall image of a haunt. And I never understood the whole, like, well, one has to be better than the other or there's drama between haunts. It just doesn't make any sense.
At the end of the day, you're just trying to scare people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's have a good time. Let's
Yeah,
scare
it
some
shouldn't
people.
even about, yeah.
What model airbrush do you prefer? Like, what do you have or what do you use, or do you have a couple?
I mean, I haven't worked with Iwata, but I think right now at the haunt we're using, I want to say Pache. But I haven't actually worked with too many brands or gotten exposed to different ones to pick a favorite. I kind of just, whatever is around.
Whatever's in your hand.
Yeah. If it gets the job done, I will use it until it won't go anymore until it dies. But yeah.
Man, when they do die, that's disappointing. It's kind of crushing. I haven't gotten to play around with Pache very much. We stick to the Iwata Eclipse brands.
Okay.
Just because like they're the easiest parts to replace and clean, and I could trust passing them off to other people. But then I personally also have a Badger as well.
Talking Spanish to me now, but I'm sure there's.
I mean, I do know as far as preferences, like I do prefer top feed over the bottom ones, just because like at the haunt we'll have trouble with the bottom feeds where bottles will just fall out of the airbrush.
Yep.
In the middle of a makeup, you're like, okay, I just got paint all over the actor. I gotta figure out how to make that work.
My shoes have many splatters now.
Yeah.
Had you had airbrush experience prior to doing haunt makeup?
I had never picked up an airbrush until I met Nicole. I didn't even know how it worked or just how to clean an airbrush. I remember there was one weekend she was gonna be gone for celebrate a birthday, I think, and she was kind of like, "Here, you can take over the airbrush people," and I was just like, "Okay, sure, I guess." And yeah, I feel like that was the best way to learn at the same time, was just to kind of be thrown into it, and you very quickly learn what doesn't work and what does.
The I won't do that again game is pretty important.
Oh yeah, yeah. Like, always start the air before you bring it to their face, so you don't freak them out while their eyes are closed, and
That's
you learn who the twitchy people are.
Yeah. It's so funny. I was just about to say I'm one of those.
I teach them to sweep on. You start spraying like over their shoulder, and then you sweep onto the face, and like it's gonna save you a lot.
Yeah.
And even then, like, people like me, like, I still like I do the jolt, like, oh God, it's on my face. And like Alex is a he's a kind man, and he'll like if he needs to like change paint or do something, I don't know what else he does, he'll tell you to relax. So like you can maybe stop tensing up and open your eyes for a second. Like, I'm not going to spray you in the face right now. So he said, like,
Yeah.
you can relax. And I used to always think Alex was mad at me, because Alex was like, at the time when I was doing haunts and getting my face painted, Alex and I barely knew each other. We had spoken like 3 words to each other all season,
Pretty much.
But so like Alex is no bullshit, if you'll pardon my when it comes to it. Like, he's here I'm gonna paint this guy's face, and he's gonna get out of my chair so I can paint the next face. So it was always relax. Like, it's like, is he yelling at me? I feel like I'm doing this wrong. Am I getting painted wrong?
It's a cover up for if I mess up. Yeah. Okay, relax. Everything's fine.
Yeah, I'm doing this right. But like, kind of in that vein, do you have, like, for like the skittish people, kind of like myself, do you have any pointers for, how to essentially be like a good canvas?
I mean, you can tell right away the people as soon as you turn it on. There's the people who twitch, and then there's the ones that just scrunch up their face. And when that happens, like, okay, I'm gonna have crease lines in the eyes and the nose and the chin.
Everywhere.
And you can tell them, like, okay, just relax your face. Like, Nicole taught me one thing where you can tell them, this is your moment to kind of just get into character, to just think about what you're going to do. And it's almost like a way to relax for them, and try to convince them of that. And then sometimes that works. And then sometimes, as soon as you turn the airbrush on, they go back to squinting. So, so I don't know. I feel like you can try to tell them to relax, or I always try to let them know what I'm doing. Like, okay, I'm going to go over your nose, so don't inhale. Mm-hmm. Don't take a deep breath right now, or for the next 3 seconds, or I'm going by your ear. Don't freak out. Don't open your eyes and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. I try to let them know what I'm doing as much as possible.
So a thing that I saw pop up on your feed, how did you get this gig painting the dancers for Good Charlotte?
Oh my gosh. Another pure luck, where it just sort of fell in my lap, kind of happenstance. It happened back in February, I believe, is when I had my first job with them. They needed a job where they wanted airbrush skulls. The makeup artist that they had didn't do that kind of work, but she knew of me on Instagram, so she recommended me. I don't know why she had chosen me. But I'm forever in her debt for that, because I did an airbrush makeup on them once, and then they had me come back for several other jobs after that, and then most recently for the Late Late Show, they had me more airbrush skulls. So from working with them, I've become very familiar with airbrush skeletal makeups.
So was that not a design that you already had in your pocket, like to perfect detail, or did you adapt from that?
I mean, I've always I noticed with my style, I tend to go more towards the black and white kind of looks. I don't play around too much with color, but I wouldn't say I had. I was not nailed down for the skeletal look. I remember freaking out and sweating bullets. Like, how does a skull look? How do I airbrush the teeth? I have to get really close to the lips for that. What if their lip does that weird flap when you get too close?
Yeah.
Stuff like that. And I feel like it's just practice, just having to practice over and over again, and it start to become almost second nature. And then you start to base the skeleton based off of their facial structures. Like, this is where their cheekbone wouldn't naturally lie. So,
How much? Let's see. How much practice or training, or goofing off and figuring how it works? How much of that do you do compared to like when you're getting paid to work?
I do it all the time at home. Not as much this year in particular, just because I've got more going on. But before, it would be like I would be in my bathroom for like hours trying to just play around with different things, figuring out, okay, well, that was a bad idea, or that looks like crap, or that would look better if I tried this. A lot of it's just playing around or kind of making a plan of, if I want this look, how do I get to that point? Should this be a project for cotton and latex, or should it be a project for wax? Or, I mean, I used to do it all the time. I would be at home and my parents would come home and they'd be like, "Oh my God, what did you do?" So, and now that I'm making masks, my bathroom looks like a shop. There's plaster and there's makeup everywhere. There's cotton and latex.
Do you have let's see. I always hated getting asked this question because I never had an answer.
So let's ask it.
But it's always that thing of like, so what's your plans? What's next? Do you want to try and do this freelance on your own for a while, or if you could, would you want to find a shop to work through?
I mean, oh gosh, that's definitely been something it's constantly been changing. Like, I thought I had a plan where I was like, okay, I'm gonna go to cinema makeup school eventually. I'm gonna move down to LA and be that makeup artist.
Mm-hmm.
And then this year happened with Good Charlotte, and I was like, okay, I've stepped foot into the water of that. Is that something I want to pursue, or do I want to go more of the route of making masks now that I'm playing with that? Do I want to be more of a fabricator, or do I want to be just someone who applies the prosthetics and not make them? I'm constantly changing. I guess, to answer your question, no, I don't have an answer.
Okay.
I guess at the moment I'm leaning towards possibly setting up, maybe focusing more on making masks. I feel like there's a little more freedom in that, where you get to kind of choose what you want to make versus what somebody else wants.
Mm-hmm.
And I like that a little bit better. So that's kind of the goal right now. I can't say it's going to be the same in maybe a month or so.
I find a lot of people struggle with the job in general, because
Mm-hmm.
over here, like, there's not a lot of work in New England.
You get it for 2 months.
we get to make zombies, and then like maybe if you make a lot of friends, you'll get a phone call throughout the summer or something. But aside from that, like, people who are making it, doing makeup, they have to do everything. They're doing wedding makeup, they're doing kids face painting parties, they're doing like glitter tattoos, and they have to cover it all, and it's a lot of product to store, and it's a lot of like materials to keep. Versus...
Oh gosh, and
Go ahead.
Oh God, the beauty makeup in general just terrifies me. That's something I do not want to go near, especially like I considered going to cosmetology school because I thought that would better my foundation, and the thought of bridal makeup terrifies me because there's too much pressure on that. I'd rather be making zombies and monsters than dealing with brides. But yeah, I feel like it makes it really hard, especially in the haunt world, because it's so based on one season, and not everybody needs a zombie, or not, especially in the middle of summer or winter. They don't need that kind of thing. So you have to be able to do the other little things just to kind of still work with it, so that it's not stuck to one time of the year.
Yeah. I dig some of your examples. You've got, I see your pig face.
Oh, thank you.
And let's see. There's
it's not often you tell someone, "Hey, I really dig your pig face." And like, "Oh, thank you so much."
And so between that and like, there's a short video of Demon Skull, and then there's like the alien head. If these are all your designs, oh, there's a skull face too. So what I see is you making, like, they're not complete masks. They're facial pieces. They could be a prosthetic, or they could be a mask if you had some straps onto it, which I feel is like the best direction, because the people making the full head masks, like, they're so pricey and expensive. Where's the
those
customer
masks
in that?
are insane. Yeah. And even those ones are, I've been playing around. I learned at that point, like, how to make a resin mask and how to work with making a rubber silicone mold to work with that. And those ones I kind of realized, like, hey, this could be a thing where I could put way more detail into it and sell it as this, like, huge deal, or I could make it something small and simple, just depending on how far you want to take it.
Is there because looking through the feed and looking at all the different kind of pieces and designs, you don't see too much of the same thing, if at all. Like, it all seems to be very different. Loving the Pennywise one, by the way. Which that movie, I don't do much horror, but I did go see it because I'm a big Stephen King fan. But I will say that movie there was a lot. It was a lot for me, but it was a lot of fun. But essentially, what I'm getting at is there's a lot of different looks, a lot of different designs, and they're all so unique. Is there one that, like, of the designs that you've done, whether it's on yourself or whether it was on like a canvas or a person, do you have a favorite one? Was there one that was like, yo, this is the greatest thing I've ever done? This, like, I'll never top this. Do you have a personal favorite?
Oh, I did one cyborg makeup a while back, and I just that was when I remember spending hours in the bathroom, like, just painting these little things line after line. I had based it off of, like, the song lyric, and I feel like that one was one that I don't know, I never see my work as like, oh, it's the best thing I've ever done, but I'm always like, oh, that looks like crap. But that's the one I guess I like the most, or it always usually pops into my head when I try to think of different things that I've done. I think that one I'm probably the most happy with the end result, if I had to choose one.
When you play that game with yourself where it's like, I hate this sucks, does that urge you to never do it again, or like to try the face a couple more times to see if you can get it right?
The initial feeling when I finish a look and I'm like, I hate it. It looks awful. And there's the initial feeling like I'm never doing that again. But then that part where it's like, okay, but then I won't grow if I don't do that. I have to do it again. And so I will try it in different ways, or approach it from a different angle, or try to figure out a way to get better at it, because I never want to stop learning on how to do something, and I feel like the best way is to practice at it. But there is that initial feeling of wanting to just completely scrap the idea in general.
We're on the same page with that, because like there's
spoke to you.
There's been a time here or there where I have a small pocket of friends that make things, and they'll make small films and whatnot, and they'll toss me a script like every couple of years, and they go, hey, this is possible? And I go, no, it's not. What are you, stupid? Get this away from me. And then like 3 days go by, and I think about it, and I go, maybe I think I could. And I have to call him back up and be like, hey man, that part I told you.
Remember when I called you stupid?
And I was like, take this out of your script. Like, let's give it a shot.
I was just kidding.
I needed to, think.
Yeah.
I just had to take it on you a little bit first.
Do do you follow many other artists, or like, do you either get inspiration from or watch like other painters and say, oh, I want to try this, or I appreciate what they do for that, or how they share things, or generally
Oh
sometimes what
yeah.
their attitude is? And
Yeah, I do that a lot, especially, I mean, I have my makeup Instagram and I have one for my illustration stuff, and I try to follow as many artists as possible. So that's all that's coming up in my feeds because I'm always getting inspired, and or I'll see someone and be like, "Oh my God, who did that? How did they do it?" And I'll stalk them on their feed a little bit to see if did they post a video of how they did that, or did they maybe talk about it, or try to learn, figure out by looking at the picture, like maybe they shadowed this a certain way or they used a certain technique. But I'm always looking at other people's work, just either to just admire or just to figure out how they did that.
do you ever get friends or family kind of questioning you? Because one of the things I have to tell people is like you have to make someone be pretend dead, and if they can't come up with a character, you got to come up with a character, and you got to talk them through it, and you got to be familiar with how people dead are
Oh, yeah.
dead. Yes, dead. How dead? Very dead.
Depends on how
And
good.
and so, you know, with that, like that, it can be a morbid job. I mean, we're making it fake. It's cartoonishly gross sometimes, but
Oh yeah, because you have to know, like, okay, if that particular stippling of the veins is going to look that way, they have to have died a certain way. Like a bloated body is going to look way different from a zombie that just came out of the ground after 100 years. So you have to know, you have to almost research ways that things happen in order to learn why it would look that way. And just on that point of how dead is an actual thing, because it's like there's the fresh zombie and then there's the one that's been a zombie for a long time and hasn't gotten a lot to eat, and people don't necessarily think about that. So you go into the detail about it and they're like, whoa, you think about this a lot. It kind of creeps them out sometimes where they're like, that's a lot of thought into that. I wasn't expecting that.
then the game is, well, it's my job though.
Yeah. Yeah.
The times I've had a friend or an acquaintance say something like, oh, I went to a dark place, and for them, like, it really is a dark place. And I'm like, well, you know, if they're willing to talk about it, we go into it a bit more. And then I go, okay, well, that's every day. That's 6 times a day for me.
Are you gatekeeping someone's dark place?
I'm not telling them this. But do you collect anything creepy? Like, do you enjoy horror films, or like do you? Because
I feel like we just opened a can of bones.
Do you visit oddity shops? And
I mean, I've never had the chance to go to an oddity shop. There's none too close to where I'm at, but like just with my parents, they're afraid to go into my room.
Yeah.
Just because
I feel that
I've got, like, it's that thing where the spirit stores pop up, Michael starts selling their Halloween stuff, and you go there for the everyday stuff, not because you're decorating for Halloween. It's because it's like, oh, and everyday decorations.
Exactly. Yeah.
I'm doing my everyday shopping, so I've got whether it's Frankenstein posters or different skulls and pumpkins, or a while back I bought the things you put on your lawn to make it look like the monsters are crawling out of the ground.
Yeah.
I bought the Creature of the Black Lagoon and a Frankenstein. I repainted them and I hung them on my wall instead. So it creeps my head out so much just to see like the Gill Man coming out of my room. Or I recently bought the pop-up coffin from Evangeline's just to have it. I mean, stuff like that where it's like, oh, I like it, I think it looks cool, and they're like, why would you do that?
It really is like when you get in that mental. Like we have a friend of ours has been posting every day on Instagram, you know, like outfit of the day, but it's always captioned like, "Oh, today's Halloween 6th." Instead of October 6th, it's Halloween. Like the entire month is and growing up, I was not.
It really should be the whole month. The fact that it's one day is too much pressure on one day.
Because I wasn't the biggest Halloween fan growing up, but it's something that I came to appreciate. Especially after working. And again, just because I don't like to scare people doesn't mean I don't not love Halloween. Yeah. It's just like that season. It's the best. Excuse me. It's the best weather. It's the best time of the year. Aside, like, I'm also a big fan of Christmas, but we'll talk about that later. But how, like, it's a lot of fun. Like, so many people just kind of come out of their shells, and it's just like, this entire month, I get to be exactly what I want to be. It's not something that can be in July. It's totally
acceptable to be creepy in public. So
exactly.
Yeah.
There was a time years ago. It's been a long time that I think about it, where Will helped me harvest a pile of bones off of a riverbank.
Oh my gosh!
Near the woods by our park, and I took him because I think he told me about him, and I went down there and I found a basket to put them in, and I cleaned them off, and now they're the decoration on an organ render box.
Oh, that's awesome! I tried that. Like with the Thanksgiving turkey, I saw the ribcage. I was like, "Can I do something like that?" And the look my mother gave me, absolutely not.
Yeah, my dad hates my bone collection. It creeps him out.
He just doesn't get it, man.
He doesn't like them. It's really weird. It's little family stuff for a brief second. So, Dad's a retired fireman. So he's pulled people, living and dead, out of buildings.
Ooh, that just got real.
And it's fine with him. Not a problem. It's his job. And he'll crack jokes about it the entire time he's doing it. But if I left a moose skull, no meat, nothing left to it, just a skull, and it's under the deck for too long, he'd be like, "Al, can you do something with that?"
Do you have a moose skull?
Yeah.
You have a moose skull? Yeah. Did I not know this?
It's in the shed right now.
I don't think I've ever seen your moose skull.
Well, it's been under the deck for 3 years. But between that and we think the stuff that we found on the riverbank was deer. And then there's my boar spine that I made into a hat rack.
As you do.
Yeah.
As you do.
Yeah. But
it's just stuff where you kind of oh yeah, I did that thing, and people are like, why? What? You did what?
It's amazing to watch Alex show people his stuff. When you get to the hat rack, and people are like, "Oh man, this is so cool," and then they find out that the bones that they've been touching are real bones. Mm-hmm. They tend to recoil a bit. There's a little
they want wash,
and the look of satisfaction on Alex's face, it's like people are like, Alex, you're the worst. And he's like, "Thank you so much."
I appreciate that. Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, there's for some reason there's the stuff that's painted and made to look creepy and dead, and then there's the stuff that is actually creepy and dead, and the whole real factor. It's funny to see people's reaction to that.
There's a big step.
As we get to the end of our conversation here, is there any, we've been mentioning your Instagram and your feeds and things like that where people can find you. Is there any place that you wanted to kind of plug, where people can see the work that we've been discussing, and how people can kind of keep up with what you're up to?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have necessarily a website, but I do post everything that I do work on Instagram, and it's just my name, Nina.Zepeda. I kept it simple. That way I figured it'd be easy to find me.
For more hirings to do band's makeup. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and my email is on that as well if it ever were to go further than just appreciating the feed.
And somehow, I don't know how, Brett found you a while ago.
Yeah.
Brett was following you before. He's one of our good close friends. He knows Will too. And he manages to find all the best artists. He knows them before we do, usually.
Brett also does the makeups.
Yeah, he does plenty of his own makeup too. And it's one of those things of hey, I found, Brett's already following him. And that was the case with you.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess maybe some of my stuff, especially the Six Flags stuff last year, I made sure I was trying to put every hashtag for Six Flags and Pride Fest that I could possibly think of, and including the year and the location and adding all this different stuff, just trying to make sure that it gets out there somehow.
It's pretty great. I mean, I can't emphasize enough how I don't know the right word. It's unbelievable how you've only been doing this for a couple of years, but you still like the amount of talent in it. It's really impressive.
Thank you.
But yeah, I think we're gonna start wrapping up here. I hope the rest of your haunt season goes super well. I hope your creatures that you create scare the shit out of everyone. And I hope Will isn't. I hope Will is a kind boss. Will comes off as a good boss, right? Yeah.
Usually, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, all the time. Yeah, you just can't leave cookies out in the makeup room. He'll take them all.
Yeah. Well, we have that in common.
I guess I can't blame him.
We all agree that we would not be Green Lanterns because we have a lack of willpower. Yeah.
He's more of an Aquaman, anyways.
Definitely.
But yeah. But Nina, thank you so much for doing this. I know this was like right after you got out of work, so it was pretty rad that you were able to make time for us. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, this is. I mean, yeah, it's always fun to be able to just. I appreciate a lot, especially if someone just wants to talk to me specifically about this kind of stuff. I'm just kind of like, well, why would you want to talk to me? Like, why? I'm not that good. Like, why? But no, this was a lot of fun.
Awesome. Make sure to check out Nina and her work. Again, that's on Instagram. You can check out nina.zepeda. You can also, if you're in the Bay Area, did I say that right? Is that where your park is? I know nothing about anything outside of New England. If you're in the Bay Area, going to Six Flags, especially within the next couple weeks, you might even be able to check out Nina and her work, and maybe get scared a little bit, maybe do some screaming. But I believe that's going to do it for this week's episode. So again, thanks again, Nina, for coming on. Until next week, I have been JR.
I'm Alex.
And I'm Nina.
And this has been episode 344 of Opinions May Vary.